Good afternoon and welcome to the Soul Shop. I'm your host, Phyllis King. Today I'm going to be speaking with Olivia Rose Elliott, the founder of starwalkers.org, and we're going to be talking about violence against women around the globe and her very unique solution and idea to help heal and bring people together around this topic and raise awareness. So enjoy this very quick clip that's prepared by starwalkers.org, and then we'll dive into a lovely conversation with Olivia. Here you go.
My name is Katleho Malela, and I'm from South Africa. I will be walking this Camino for the victims and survivors of rape, because I am a victim and a survivor. I walk for the women that cannot speak, are afraid to speak, and didn't live to speak.
My name is Jasmine Akbari. I am an Iranian, English, and Australian woman. But more importantly, I am woman. I walk for every woman that was told she is not enough. You are enough.
Hi, I'm Nadia. I'm from Pakistan. I'm walking the Camino for all the women who have been sexually and physically abused in their own marriage, who gave up their financial independence for their love.
I walk for you.
I walk for you.
I walk for you.
Hi, my name is Oliva Elliott, and I'm the founder of Star Walkers Foundation. I began this project to bring women from around the world of diverse backgrounds who have been limited by their gender to walk the Camino de Santiago de Compostela in 50 days, covering 500 miles. This walk is about our freedom, our healing, and our empowerment. Sponsor one of our Star Walkers and join us on our walk. Thank you.
Hi, Olivia. Thank you
Hello.
for being here today. Now, that video is so powerful, just in the short minute, 45 seconds or so that it is. It really gives us a sense of where we're going on this journey with the Star Walkers Foundation and your passion. Thank you for that beautiful sharing. And I wanted to start the show with that because it really sets the tone for such depth and optimism that we're trying to explore here. But before we dive into the Star Walkers Foundation and how this came to be, you are such an interesting character. If you like being called a character, I mean, you're an educator, you're an actor, you're a producer, you have a lot of different elements to your person. Tell us how you came to be this multidimensional being, and then we'll lead into how Star Walkers came to be and your passion about women and violence towards them around the globe.
Okay, well, thank you for having me first and foremost. And yeah, let's see. Life has been a journey like everyone else's. I went to school, studied poli-sci, then taught a year in Korea, and loved teaching English. So then went.
Is it because you wanted to teach English? Is that how you ended up in Korea?
Yep. I taught it 1 year in Seoul, Korea. That was straight out of college back in 2005. A year after, actually. And then afterwards, I went to Amsterdam, did a master's there in social theory, public affairs.
Now, did you wanted to be in Asia or in Europe? How did you decide to be in around the world rather than the United States?
Well, I think I always had a yearning to travel and learn cultures.
Really?
And yeah, and
did your parents show you that, or is that just something you were called to do, or college inspired that in you?
Yeah, I believe just like something within me was always desiring to see the world. I guess maybe growing up in a small town.
Don't need to argue with it. It's just interesting. So you went to Korea, you're teaching English, and then you go to Amsterdam to get your master's. Yep. Why Amsterdam?
Because of the liberal culture.
Okay.
And I remember thinking that sounds like a city for me.
I thought maybe because pot was legal over there a long time ago. I don't know.
No, actually, no. And they had a great program. It was geared towards working in nonprofit organizations. So, Yep. And then I went and taught a year after that I went to Rome, got certified to teach English there, and then went to Portugal for a year and taught in Lisbon. And then after that, returned to Denver. So
Wow. Okay. And so I'm assuming you have a pretty good grasp on those languages of Italy, Germany. You have a grasp of those languages, or?
To be honest, you always teach in English.
Oh,
So
okay.
when I was there and working or studying, I was always using English. I speak a little of each of them. Yeah, more functional, I would say, than anything. Just
But I'm
getting
assuming
around.
you soaked up the culture and some of the people and the locals and got a feel for the terrain and the culture there.
Yes, and it was wonderful.
And so it
Absolutely.
fulfilled really that calling you felt to go and experience.
Yes, yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
Okay, so you got back to Denver. Good old Denver.
Good old Denver, yeah. And I'm originally from Wisconsin, born and raised there, but my dad was living in Denver, so that's why I ended up in Denver. And yeah, I did a master's there in linguistics and education.
One
Another
wasn't
one.
enough. You needed another one.
Yeah. Well, I was teaching at the University of Colorado, Denver there,
Okay.
English. So
Okay.
it just made sense to get a master's in the field then.
Well, of course,
yeah.
it just makes sense.
Yes. So yeah, I did that. And while I was doing that, I was actually studying acting there at the Denver Performing Arts Center. And
Okay.
yeah,
Was there always a creative streak in you early on? And
I love painting. So that was
Oh.
a medium I'd work with, writing.
Okay.
Yeah. And so acting was, it seemed natural to just try my hand at that as well. And I really
Oh.
enjoyed it. I took like a 101 acting class and just fell in love with it and thought, okay,
Really?
this is great.
Oh
So
my goodness.
yeah.
And so did you do theater or anything like that, or plays?
I did like a few films, more independent
Oh,
student
okay.
films, getting my
Okay.
feet wet. Yeah. And then I wrote a screenplay and shot my own like short film and it starred in it, of course, kind of like what you do in school, film school. So
Right.
it's a good way to kind of understand the whole process of making film. So
It's so interesting because you had this nonprofit focus, which is all about service and helping other people. And traditionally, acting and all of that, it's self-focused. So, but it's also expressive. It doesn't have to be ego-driven. But it seems like such an interesting duo of talents.
yeah, yeah. And I think too, working internationally, because I've always, traveled internationally or worked with international students. At UC Denver, I taught mainly Saudi Arabians, and then I moved to LA and worked at the New York Film Academy there and worked with a diversity of students from all over the world. And yeah, and then the film aspect too is I want to make a documentary series out of our first walk of our nonprofits.
Okay, so now we're getting into it.
That's how it all integrates.
It's just fascinating. It's always interesting to hear how people's process evolves and how they come to an awareness that this is my next step. And so what was the awareness that said, I need to do this?
Well, it was actually during a shamanic healing session with my teacher out of Denver.
What? Okay, wait. All right. So
Yeah.
you're at film school in New York.
Yep,
And you
teaching
have
there.
a shamanic teacher where? Denver?
In Denver.
Okay.
Yeah. And he was always a very dear friend of mine. And
Okay.
yeah, so yeah, we did a healing session over the phone actually. And it works, believe it or not. Zoom phone, we can do a lot of healing through using these mediums, these tools, which is amazing.
Of course.
Yeah. And so
Well,
it came.
do you mind me asking what you were healing, or what was it? Just a generic, give me what you got, or I mean, what was that about?
Sure. So actually, I've always studied, or I shouldn't say, struggled with dealing with my relationships with men. And it actually goes to another impetus for the project Star Walkers.
Okay.
Yeah, my father would physically abuse my mom when I was growing up. And so I was a witness of it. And they also had a very toxic relationship where they cheated on each other. So I've never been able to trust a man.
Yeah.
So I've always kind of struggled with this. And that healing was part of that. Yeah. And then the message was, I need to walk the Camino, and it's not just about my healing, but women's healing. So I think it's really that, healing the divine feminine, masculine, and all the different translations of what that looks like in our lives.
That from that shamanic healing session, the inspiration really came forward in a very tangible way, and you began
Yeah, I just
Star Walker. So how did the pilgrimage and walking, how did that seem to, why was that the chronology? How did that come about?
sure why that is the healing tool. I think when I was in Europe, I did hear about the Camino, and it kept, the seed was planted and it kept coming up, and I thought I really want to do that. And I remember even doing a breathwork session and coming out of the breathwork session and going, I got to walk the Camino. I don't know why, but I just got to do it. And then it just evolved into this with the shamanic healing years later. And I just felt like, okay, this is my calling, my soul's purpose. I need to.
So for people who don't know what the Camino is, who might be listening or watching, explain what the Camino is.
So it's an ancient, medieval pilgrimage, and it originally started in Israel, and it ends in Santiago de Compostela, Spain, and it leads to the bones of Saint James, who was a disciple of Jesus. It also has a lot of underlying Mother Mary elements to it. Mary's everywhere on the Camino. I walked the Camino this year alone, and a lot of shrines. She was everywhere. Her spirit is everywhere on the Camino. So I really feel I was drawn towards and guided by the divine of Mother Mary. Yeah, and Mary Magdalene.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So you choose the Camino as, and you go and search it on yourself, or how did it become this pilgrimage to include other women? And why did that seem like it was something that would help people, or a foundation for bringing awareness to this most important issue of violence against women around the globe?
Sure. So it is an ancient tool for meditation and healing oneself. You disattach, I think, you disattach from everyday life, and you start to go inward as you walk. And I can speak from experience that this was it. Every day you're in this meditation, you're in touch with nature. So everything that you've suppressed in your psyche that needs to be healed does come up for healing. And through physical exercise, because it is exhausting, you walk about 15, 20 minutes or miles a day.
A lot.
Your body aches, and
you have to have good shoes.
You do. Hokas and chacos is what I use.
Okay.
So, and it really, like I said, it came through the healing session with the shaman that this is the tool for us to heal, and use it as the walking meditation, and hold the space with women, bring us together, walk together, and have conversation about what's coming up, and be there as a supportive web with each other.
So you have the vision. How did you make it happen? How did you find, like, some of the women in the video that was created, that beautiful video? How did you find the participants? And was it after you started the nonprofit, before you started? How did that come about?
Sure. So
Some people may not want to tell their stories. I mean, you're so nice to be forthcoming about your past, but not a lot of people want to talk about it.
I think vulnerability is important because, like you said, we all have our journeys, and it's important to share so we can learn from each other. So that's why I'm always very open with my experiences. And so people understand me and why I do the things I do, and they know my motivation and where it's coming from. So it's from a pure place. So that's why I feel very comfortable sharing.
But how did you find the women? I mean,
yes. Yeah. So I did start the nonprofit first. I just started building it, teaching myself basically step by step how to build a nonprofit. And then the women, while I was living in LA, I met women.
When were you in LA?
So I moved to LA in 2018.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was there for 2.5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And was this around movies and films and things, or?
I did move there. Unbeknownst to me why, actually. It was just a kind of kick in the stomach one morning in Denver, and I was like, I got to move to LA. Okay, I got it. And I just listened to the download and went. And I ended up teaching there, like I said, at the New York Film Academy. So we had people from all over the world, and anytime I got a nudge to talk to someone, I did about the project. And Catalejo was one of my students. I just shared with her, I'm building this nonprofit, and this is the purpose. And then she let me know that she was raped. And I started doing research and found out that 70% of women in South Africa will be raped in their lifetime. It's one of the highest statistics in the world. And she's very passionate and has become a dear friend through this process. So yeah, it was, situations like that, as well as just being out in the wild, let's say, going to women's events, talking to people about the project, and then people saying, I'm interested, and here's my story. I would love to walk. And so it just kind of grew from there.
So you accumulated participants, and they were very happy to share their story. And I guess you did the walk together at some point.
We did do a trial run, actually. A few of us gathered, 5 of us, and we went up to Topanga Canyon, and we camped, and we did hiking together, and we shared our stories, and we talked about women's issues. And I'm sitting on the footage of that, actually, because I did film a lot of it. But in terms of us, actually, all of the women that are involved walking the Camino so far, we have not. And that's a matter of fundraising. Yeah, we need to fundraise.
I see. So Star Walkers Foundation, why Star Walkers? Why, what's that name?
Yeah, great question. So Camino de Santiago de Compostela is the way of the stars. So we're literally walking the way of the stars, the constellations.
Beautiful.
Of Virgo coming out of France, going into Spain. So
yes. And so the purpose of the foundation is,
well, our mission is to become pilgrims, walk for our healing and empowerment and our rights.
And so it's in many ways, it's really at the beginning in many ways that you've done a test run, you have some footage you've yet to bring forward. Is it really a funding issue that's holding things up, or what does it really need to get liftoff at this point in time? What can people do to help?
Yeah, so it is funding. And one thing that people can do to help is we do have virtual pilgrimages available. And so on our website at www.starwalkers.org, if you scroll to the bottom of the page, you can sign up and you can become a Star Walker yourself and track your mileage. You can do all of the Camino, 500 miles. You can do half of it, a quarter, or the last 100 miles, and raise money that way for the foundation. And sponsor one of the Star Walkers. If you go to the profiles, you can see the women. So that's one way. We're also looking for volunteers for grant writing, as well as social media, all sorts of different areas of the project. I basically have been building it myself, along with working a full-time job teaching. So the more hands, light work, right? Many hands make light work. So if anyone's interested in volunteering, we have lots of positions open too.
So what did you notice? So you're up at Topanga Canyon and you have this test run with women and you're shooting footage. I mean, did it bear out what you thought? Did the physical exercise, the pilgrimage community, did women actually accelerate? Did they actually find healing and release? I mean, what happened to these women when they did this exercise, essentially?
Sure. Well, I would say because we were there for 4 days and it was just a small snapshot of what would it feel like to, do a long hike, be in community, talk about women's issues. I feel like it was the catalyst for conversation, for healing. There were women that definitely cried telling their story, and us holding the space and just witnessing each other through that process, that I felt it was cathartic in a lot of ways for them. So yeah, I mean, I think the real test will be walking the Camino together, doing the real Camino. And but as a snapshot, I think it's a good indicator of what it could be, and how it can help heal and empower us. Because when you set a goal and you achieve it, you feel empowered. And 500 miles is no easy feat.
No, it is. No, it is not. Yeah. So, tell me what your projection is that might happen in the next year or so or two as you secure funding.
Yeah. So as I secure funding, I would like to gather more women and get them involved, to multiply the people walking virtual pilgrimages, because you don't have to go to Spain either to do it, or France for that matter. And I think, getting a film crew so that we can secure making it into a documentary series so that the efforts can be amplified and people can learn from the women's stories and journey. I also think of it as a rite of passage, doing something physical like this. And it's the heroine's journey if you put it into the story structure. So I think there's a lot there that can be built out and developed in the next year in terms of, just, I guess, getting the funding to get the women there from all over, because a lot of these women come from backgrounds that they can't afford it. And
and then you disperse it as a documentary, as a film. I mean, how would this be dispersed? I mean, because it seems like ultimately we want to raise awareness and in all over these countrysides, especially where the acts are so egregious. I mean, we just have to continue to educate. So would it be done through a documentary, through television?
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So making it into a series or a documentary film, a feature, is the vision. And having that distributed to organizations, to educational institutions, showing it at film festivals, to hopefully get it picked up by, a larger network for educational purposes. So
you talked about grant writers, of course, which are always important. What other kind of people are you looking for? What kind of spots? I mean, you said filmmakers, people who can do film. Are there any other hands-on type of people, or can anyone join up to help you? Just moral support. What would be welcome in the organization?
I think everything, really, like walking, doing a virtual pilgrimage. I would love to get a couple executive producers on board for the documentary, and film crew. So, and I have networked with a few people over in Europe that are interested in the project. Again, fundraising. So, which, it can come in terms of events, coming together as a community and creating an event or an online event. And I have a lot of ideas about that as well. So if anyone's interested in event planning with me, and setting it up that way. There's lots of opportunities.
There's a lot of opportunities.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about Angelina Jolie. I wish I knew her. She is such an advocate for women's rights and in these, especially these impoverished parts of the world where it's so rampant. So maybe you and she will connect.
Wouldn't that be amazing?
Wouldn't that be amazing?
Yeah,
yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's so much potential here. And whenever there's a large agenda and a large issue you're trying to tackle, it takes a village, and it really does take some building and building out. But it sounds like you're on your way and you're committed. And I just love that it was born from something that's so personal and meaningful to you, and you're able to make something positive out of that in the world. I love that. I think that really is the foundation of everything magnificent that manifests in the world. That's my point of view.
I agree with you. Yeah. Absolutely.
So you have this enormous project with Starwalkers Foundation, and you are welcoming in all resources, large and small at this point, and all hands on deck, essentially. And you're currently working. I mean, you're beginning a teaching position relatively soon. And is it in Colorado?
I'm actually in Seattle now.
Oh, in Seattle. Okay.
Yeah. Yep. So I'll be teaching at Edmonds College in Linwood, which is north of here.
So how do you do it all, Olivia? How do you manage to have these huge dreams and goals and work a job and have a relationship and help friends? How do you do it all?
I don't know. I guess I can spin many plates at one time. Yeah, I have many hands. Like I always think of these Hindi deities, these goddesses with many hands.
So let's just talk a little bit, since you have personal experience with this, how can women who have been in situations, I know you're not a therapist, we're not asking you to or a doctor, we're not expecting you to give that type of insight, but I think experience is so worthwhile when you've healed and you garnered a larger perspective. What can women do in general when we're feeling oppressed or we're in a situation which feels hopeless, or we feel powerless against someone who has power over us, either physically, emotionally, financially? What do you think? What are some ways to find our way when we're mired down in that?
Mm-hmm. Well, actually, our website, starwalkers.org, does have a lot of resources.
Wonderful. Okay.
Yeah, so it connects you with therapists, different organizations that work specifically with issues such as acid attack survivors. And yeah, so I would point you to that resource and get professional help. And I think too, first and foremost, if you're in a physical or if there is a physical threat to you, I would certainly say get out of there, right? And find a shelter, find an organization that helps you as a woman. And, family, friends that you can trust to talk to and share with would be the first steps. And then, figuring out after talking to them what next steps would be after that.
So we lost Olivia's feed at the very end, and we were just saying goodbye, but I would like to encourage you to visit starwalkers.org, look at the resources, take the pilgrimage via Zoom if you can't sign up to participate one. And if there's any way you can help or want to be a part, please contact Olivia or the foundation directly. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, take care.